remote podcast time. Okay, so it's late. We're going to be a couple hours late on release today. Sam Alama is not feeling the besticles, so he's calling in from his bed rest position. I'm sure we'll touch on it for half a second, but move on from there. It's Saturday afternoon. You got the football on the TV. It's a great day to be alive. Anyway, almost agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to the website, almostagreement.com. While you're there, check out hollerbrew.com, the Street Fair, Soapbox Derby, and rock and roll show on October 26th. You should come and partake in whatever fashion you see fit. Some fun stuff in the news going on this week, and we're going to chat about it. Maybe run a little short today just to let Sam get a little extra rest in. But we're going to do our show, and we'll go from there. Hey, buddy.
Hey.
How you doing?
I'm doing.
What's new?
Oh, I got a new car.
Oh, yeah, you did. Oh, yay. See, everybody, eventually I'll ask the question and get an answer. I love it.
You did.
Made
myself. Came about. Been talking about it for like a year and a half. Like, I've been looking at cars.
I know, and then I didn't get to actually see it in the flesh last night like we normally would. Right. That bums me out. But
that's what bummed me out that same day. I was like, man, I just want to go grab my car.
Well, show off my, what'd you say? Show off my whip.
Did I say that?
I think that's what you said. I could quote you if you want me to.
Might have been a fever thought.
What'd you say?
I wouldn't put it past me. I like to be silly.
True.
How you do?
I'm doing okay. It's been. I ended up.
I just realized I don't think I ever asked you that.
You don't. What's funny is like just in the happy accidents that are the universe at large. Since we didn't tape last night as normal, I didn't sit around and drink beer and have a good time. Right. And in not so fun news, one of the GMs of the tavern, his wife hurt herself at home doing something. I don't know exactly what happened, but he was basically like, "Somebody help! I got to go take my wife to the ER."
Damn.
So I said, "Go! I'm on my way." Right. Had it been any normal Friday night, I'd been like,
"I can't do it."
Yeah, not me. Somebody call me an Uber. That's your best case, but. Right. And so just happy accident. It worked out well in that sense. Not that that's you know what I mean. So that's the thing. So, and I suppose the gods are smiling upon us for a delayed show because I just got a text message for a political survey. You want to go down the rabbit hole of a random political survey with me?
Not really.
Oh, come on. They're usually pretty good. It's from Dynata. It's a short survey on issues important to residents of Knoxville. I got one a couple days ago that's probably similar. And it was definitely...
I think you sent me a screenshot of one. Maybe it was a link.
I tried to send you the link, and whether it lets you go through it or not, I don't know. Because I tried... Because my thing was, like, I like to do these surveys. I enjoy them because I'm curious what they do. But, like, they usually, once you do them, you can't get back in to see what the questions were and stuff like that. Because it's not like I want to change my answers, but I think there's usually something worth talking about. So, You don't want to go through the survey with me?
We can do it.
I think it'd be fun. It's a short survey. It won't take long. All right, so Dynata is, am I over 18 and registered to vote in Knox County? Yes, I am. Now, this is the one that I'm going to have to lie on. Do you or does anyone in your household work for a newspaper, television station, radio station, market research company, or political campaign? I mean, the technical answer is no. I don't work for any of those. I mean, I do. I work for indirectly for Compass. But they work for me, actually. I think I don't know. That's a weird contract thing. Okay, so here we go.
They're contracting you.
Yeah. How? So right. That would mean I'm in their employ.
Yes.
How likely are you?
I was trying to make it in your favor. It didn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's a survey. It's not a criminal action. I don't think. I mean, allegedly. Shit. How likely are you to vote in the November general election for President of the United States, Senate, and state and local offices? I am 100% definitely going to vote. What is my main racial background? I am as white as it gets. How old are you? 40-something. What is your gender? Only 2 questions, male or female. Male it is. That's it. That's the totality of the survey. They don't want to hear from white men.
Is it just looking for engagement?
I don't think so. I think that
Right.
I
mean, it sounds like they're asking, I guess, if you were going to be a registered voter as far as engaging in voting. So that's what I meant. They're looking to, I guess they're trying to get a poll on voting engagement.
I feel like this one's probably more likely.
If that's all it's asking,
they're looking
it sounds
for.
Like it sounds like an early poll to be like, are you going to go out and vote?
Yeah, I think these are. I think with the technology nowadays, these polls are dynamic in the sense that this poll is specifically seeking out a certain subset of people, whether it's race, gender, age, or even just like because a lot of the polls that you hear on the news, it's like a poll of likely voters. Right. Well, if you start the poll and you say you're not likely to vote, then you're not a likely voter. So they don't. But the poll with the technology of the poll, it'll just stop. If you say I'm not likely to vote, then they'll just stop the poll. They're not going to ask you more questions. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, usually if you're going around doing political polls, like when your main first questions is are you a registered voter? Are you going to vote? Or otherwise, kind of getting that information depending on what you're kind of canvassing. But if you're kind of looking for actually like voter information. Yeah, you're going to stop right there. You'll be like, okay, you're not a registered voter. You don't have the data that I'm looking for. I need more of a subset.
We're looking for younger women of
color.
No,
we're not looking for a specific type of people. I'm just saying if you go up to somebody randomly, if you're going out trying to look for voter engagement, you're trying to find out if people are going to vote or what they're going to vote on.
But that's the only question.
And your first couple questions are going to be, are you a registered voter or do you plan to vote? And if they say no to both, I mean, for what,
then
what your purpose is worthless to you.
Right. Or the questions could be, why aren't you voting? And then they can say,
right. That's what I was saying. It kind of depends on.
I think we're agreeing with each other here and just confusing ourselves in argument. Because I think, like I said, I think the polls are adjust to who they have. Because it's not worth going, like you said, it's not like if they have more questions and you say, anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I think we agree. Because I got one the other day that was definitely.
You're almost in agreement.
Yeah, it was definitely I think it was at least a Republican camp survey, giving them the how did we word this thing? Because it's one of those where they ask the questions like it was something about it was definitely Elaine Davis or a Republicans for Elaine Davis kind of thing because there were some questions about her opponent, Mr. Goldberg. That were those very it was a funny wording, and that's why I sent it to you because I was hoping you'd be able to open it so you could see the wording because it was something about if it is true that Mr. Goldberg is X, how does that change your opinion of them?
Right.
So it's not stating that the thing is or isn't true. It's just saying if it is.
Right.
And so they're really just kind of trying to implant the idea that it's true. But worded in a way to say that, no, we're just saying as philosophically, theoretically.
Just tickle the brains of those that are like, well, I don't know that it's not true.
Right, exactly. And so it's just like, that's such a dirty, and like a couple of them were like, it was like, just short of if it was true that Mr. Goldberg wants to kill babies. And it's like, well, I'm pretty sure that's not true, but it's, it was one of those weirdly abortion worded ones. But anyway, it's just that's what I was hoping this one was going to be another one of those so we could break down some of that wording because it's so.
No, that was pretty bland.
Yeah, it was such toxic wording. So we got some national coverage in the state of Tennessee again, and guess what? It wasn't positive for Tennessee.
That much focus on it. I mean, it was mentioned that it was a Tennessee-based company.
I know it's right. It's really it's like one of the okay.
But I think I heard they're Canadian.
One of them was a Canadian.
One of them is okay.
One of the influencers are about. So all right, so
I thought it was the two owners. I thought one of them was Canadian.
I don't know. They're based here in Tennessee though. Anyway, I just tried to open it and it's giving me the paywall, and I don't want to pay for it. So,
what their website?
Yeah, the New York Times. So it's a New York Times story. The headline reads.
Oh no, sorry. I thought you tried to go to their media website.
No. The New York Times, I tried to link through the story that we shared back and forth.
I almost responded that back to you. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I don't have any free articles.
Yeah. So New York Times, it opened for me in Facebook where I originally saw it. But
I'm sure they've got some kind of agreement, where they'll let so many users or whatever.
Right, and when they put it on Facebook, it gets more action, and so that gives them more. Yeah, because it's basically an advertisement. It's one of the ways they do advertising on socials. But anyway, New York Times headline: Russia secretly worms its way into America's conservative media. And it goes on to talk about the story. It's a company called Tenet Media, TNNET, or TN.
Either double N or double T. I can't remember which. It might be double both.
Yeah, but it's like TN for Tennessee Entertainment, ENT. And so it's a social media group or whatever, and so one of the things that's weird about this is I was reading through this one and other stories I'd heard on it is so the broad strokes here, correct me if you disagree with the understanding, but the broad strokes here is that a couple of Russian spies, for lack of a better word, under false names, laundered money through some Canadian company. There's a whole bit about some rich Canadian guy who was doing this for political ends, that it wasn't these two Russian dudes. They completely fabricated this guy, who hired Tenet Media to hire some of the talent that they have to do a series of videos. And so one of the things that got lost in the New York Times version of the story that I think is an important detail is that these videos were produced separately from these different influencers' actual pages. So it's Tim Pool and Dave Rubin and something Johnson or something like that were the three big ones in it. There were a number of other ones. It was like a dozen or so different influencers, but these were the three top ones. And so like Dave Rubin got $400,000 for doing 4 bits of content, for lack of a better word, but it wasn't on his show or on his Facebook page or on his YouTube channel. It was a show that he produced on behalf of Tenet Media that went on Tenet Media's YouTube channel and stuff like that. And that's a detail that I think is important to distinguish. It doesn't change it. It doesn't change the vulgarity of what actually happened, but it's an important detail. So anyway, so these two Russian guys pay all this money to Tenet Media, and they're trying to influence what these guys are saying on the shows that they're producing for Tenet Media, not their own shows. But I think that's the game. The game is they're trying to say, this thing that we're doing over here, making a bunch of money for these stupid videos that nobody watches, that money gets to keep coming, and we can keep making those stupid videos, but this is going to influence what you're doing on your regular channel too. I think that's the goal of the Russian insertion here. Does that sound about accurate to you?
No, I think it's more so just kind of taking their platform and having them put out a message. They have their own following.
But that's my point. Is that's the distinction here? Is the content they produced was not on their own platforms.
Right.
It was only on the Tenet. Yeah. It was only on the Tenet Media version of their platform, which is a subset of their actual. Like it's like Tim Pool has his YouTube channel.
Right. That was the one weird thing that I saw when they talked about the prices, per episode or per month that they were getting paid. People pulled up like the Tenet videos, and some of them had like 9,000 views,
right?
12,000,
which is right.
Like max was like 15,000. So it's like, how are you getting? You didn't ask, and I don't know.
Right, but we're talking. But if you go to Tim,
I'm getting paid that much for this many views, huh?
But if you go
I do other stuff and get paid lots more money, on my other platforms that have much more followers, and I'm not making that much money there. I don't know. I would think that would raise red flags in my mind. But
I agree, but
maybe they were unbeknownst.
But I think that's my point. I think that's part of the point here. Is if you go to Tim Pool's channel right now and you do like the handful of his most recent episodes, like the smallest that I've seen in here is like 65,000.
On one of his pages?
On his channel. That's that.
Right.
Again, so that's why I was making a big deal of that distinction. There is a distinction there. Now, again, it doesn't. It certainly discredits some of the value of him as a quote journalist moving forward here, because it's clear that he's taking a bunch of money to produce something he doesn't necessarily believe in. And he and a number of the other ones came out and said, "Hey, okay, these guys paid us, but they didn't change what I was making." Right. So that part's in play too. But
I don't know if it was alleged if they gave them what they wanted them to talk about.
There was some stuff where they got a hold of like a Discord conversation or some sort of chat back and forth between some production people for some of these shows and Tenet Media, and these Russian guys posed as somebody else or whatever, where it was
there was a couple specific videos that were mentioned, like the when Tucker went
right
grocery shopping.
They were asking to make
that was one that went back and forth, and they were like, "All right, fine, I'll run it tomorrow."
Right, the production. So again, I don't remember the exact which channel it was, but let's for conversation's sake. So it was like it was a producer for Tim Pool's show who was talking to the Tenet people and this Russian guy in this conversation, and the Russian guy kept.
I don't think that had anything to do with Tim Pool. I think that was just between like the two main Tenet people.
Maybe, I don't know, but what they were trying to do is get the Tenet people to push the use of that Tucker video on the things they were producing for them.
Gotcha.
And so again, it's like, okay, again, it doesn't look good, and it's certainly not particularly what you would describe as like a what's the word I'm thinking of here? I wouldn't use the phrase of like integrity in journalism and an action like this by the journalist and their team. You know, like I don't think it's good. I think it looks poor for them. And I think but it's, again, it's interesting. It's a Tennessee story only because of a very slight slight. But I think for me, this New York Times one especially, I have the actual article covering it kind of bothers me. And this is a subject, like this is a semi-hard subject change, so prepare your brain to kind of forget what we've been talking about. Because this is not a new practice by Russia or a number of other countries at all. This is something they do either directly through their own social media channels that they create and all their little bot farms and all that kind of stuff that they do. Just on the Russian side, there's I can't remember the name of the documentary. It's been a while. But it's a documentary, and this is I think it was a Washington Post journalist, and this was maybe it was during the pandemic that they did this big like deep dive into it, and it's like these Russian troll farms where it's like literally there's a guy at a desk, and on his computer he has two windows open, and he is managing two different Facebook groups in like the Dallas metro area, and it's like a pro-Muslim this, that, and the other group, and like a fairly generic like white nationalist, like white Christian nationalist group that he is the admin of and has created, and he's like pushing all like trying to get all these people involved in it and stuff. And then he's making events on the same place at the same time for these two groups to come demonstrate and stuff like that. And it's just this whole effort to sow the discord. Now that one's a little bit less. That's not using living media. That's doing it all on their own. But this is something that's not new. And again, what I took a little bit back, especially from this headline from the New York Times, is it's that, yes, this is a very particular story. I agree that this is a particular story. Department of Justice has an investigation and has, I think, issued arrest warrants for these two Russian nationals, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, and so like there is a particular to this case that makes this headline true, but I don't like it. Still, it seems a little slanted to me that you're going to say Russia secretly worms its way into American conservative media. That doesn't, to me, that's not an accurate headline to the story. And I think that headline says a lot about what they're trying to say and using the actual story that is real to do to paint a larger picture. Does that make sense?
Paint a more accurate picture for me of what you think.
I mean, just like I think I could add a couple of words to the current headline and make it at least more accurate. Russia secretly worms its way into some American conservative media,
right.
Or.
I mean, I don't know these guys Pool. I mean, I've heard the name Tim Pool and Dave Rubin, which, like I said, I don't keep up with a lot of media.
Right, they are very active
general,
and
but
pretty significant.
I think they're considered. Yeah, they're pretty big. Online,
right?
Conservative,
but they are not all conservative media, and that's kind of my point. The way this headline reads is it says conservative media. That says to me all, or most of, or the majority of, or a huge percentage of, or something of that nature. That says a lot.
Is Tenet Media any kind of affiliation? Are they more centrist?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know the political leanings of the production or of that company. But again, like you could use like
who are you referring to that are centrist that aren't conservative? If you're saying they're trying to, throw the blanket conservative out there.
No,
I think they only mentioned 4 people.
Right, and they're all conservative. I agree with that. In the particulars of the case, how many people would you think are out there like actively with a substantial audience that would be considered conservative media?
I have no idea.
I would think thousands.
I thought you were trying to say that there was other political affiliations amongst them or something.
I don't know. No,
sorry,
not in this
I
one.
misunderstood you.
No. I'm just trying. The way this headline reads is that, okay. So yes, I agree that all of the ones in this particular story are conservative media. Yes, but not all of conservative media has been infiltrated by this Russian scheme. Does that make more sense? But the headline reads like everybody.
Yeah, but I don't. I mean, I'm sorry. That's your interpretation of the headline. When I read that headline, I don't think it's trying to say that Russia has, embedded itself in all of conservative media. I think you're reading into that a little.
Maybe I am, but I mean the phrase "America's conservative media" that implies a lot to me, not just a couple.
Well, I mean, like you said, it's a major network. There's at least 4 major people that were involved in it that are major political contributors.
Okay, I agree with that.
I mean, I get what you're saying.
But
also, I mean,
Tucker is the biggest of them, and he is implicated only as a weird little pawn in the game. But he's not implicated as one of the ones being actually controlled by the Russian spy machine or whatever the fuck it is, the useful idiots, as they say.
Right.
Like Russia, Tucker is like the top of conservative media.
That doesn't prove or disprove anything. This actual investigation is about one company, or like 2 people that were part of the RT News or whatever that paid money to this company. That it's not trying to say there was nothing else going on or whatever. This case is specifically just talking about these allegations.
I agree. I acknowledge 100%. But in the article itself, in the context,
Tucker's not mentioned. Well, yeah, then obviously he didn't get paid by RT in this transaction.
Okay, so back up a second. Listen to the words I'm saying, and
okay, sorry,
and see if you could catch my America's conservative media. I would include Tucker Carlson in America's conservative media. I would include Ben Shapiro, who is in business with Dave Rubin, for that matter. He's part of their same actual network, among dozens, if not thousands, of other people that you would consider conservative media. The headline reads like they have all been infiltrated by it, not just these 6 or 10 or whatever it is that are explicitly associated with this tenant media, RT, whatever that just came out.
Right.
That's where the headline to me, and I think you do disagree with this, and that's fine, but the headline to me reads like a significant amount, the majority of America's conservative media has had Russia wormed in.
Fair enough.
I think that's maybe it's part of the sensational game that news has to play now, and I get that, but I don't that bothers me. You're supposed to be it's New York Times. You're supposed to be the paper of record for the United States. You should have.
I mean, and also to another point, it's the New York Times. It costs them money per word, so sometimes headlines are shortened. They can't throw extra words in there to try to make it more precise. I do get your criticism. It could be misconstrued.
Okay, right, and then we get into my tinfoil hat part, and that's where I start to say it's intentional. And then secondarily, and again, I understand this story specifically is about the specific case in play, but I think there's a lot of context here that should be discussed, and they do kind of touch on it in the story. They do mention some of the troll farm stuff that I was talking about earlier, as far as context for different times when Russia has been clearly trying to get in to sow discord and mess with our political system and this, that, and the other. But if you're gonna if you're gonna show context, then we need to talk about multiple context. Because again, a separate thing that came out this week is that the Department of Justice has also put has released a list of countries of concern that are going to try to disinform our election process this year. Did you see that thing?
I think so. I think I've seen a couple stories, like Iran or China, maybe. But
right. I
don't think I've seen about a list.
It's basically they put out a list, and the only thing new on the list was Iran was officially on the list, where it was always kind of implied there. And it's okay, but those are adversarial nations to us, and I can understand why a governmental body doesn't want to push, because I don't know, but there are definitely other countries that are trying to influence our election. I mean, the simple and the easiest one right now I would say that Israel is trying to influence our election. I'm pretty sure Bibi has a preference on which president he wants, and he's trying to exert power or influence on how we elect. Maybe not him directly, but his government and his team is. But since it's an allied nation, we don't consider that a threat. Yes, no, did I lose
Are you asking me a question?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like for context, I think it's. I guess my point is, and maybe it's too much to ask that they put that in context in this article, and that's on me. But I think that I think there is a slew of nations who are deeply invested in outcomes of our elections, and they spend a lot of time, energy, money trying to influence them the way that's best for them.
Yeah, for good and for bad, yeah.
Right. And I think it's unfortunate. I think there's an interesting David Sachs, not the Goldman Sachs company, but like David Sachs, he's a old policy advisor. He's been around. He was in the Clinton White House.
Not familiar.
He was an interesting interview with him. Apparently he was an economic advisor, maybe during Reagan's administration. I don't remember exactly how it all broke down, but he was in Eastern Europe, working with some of the new nations that were coming about in the fall of the Soviet Union, kind of stuff, and how they were putting all these how the U.S. was helping putting all these parts and pieces together. And it was a very interesting, kind of take out on his part as somebody who was there, in how when the Cold War ended, it was supposed to be the end of hostility. But in his interpretation is we decided to lean into the big bad we wanted to keep the big bad wolf that was Russia, even though they weren't the big bad wolf anymore. And so policy continuations after the fall of the Soviet Union is what turned the new Russia into the new enemy instead of the new Russia being a friendly neighbor in the world. It's really interesting. I'll see if I can find it and I'll send it to you. And we could talk about it more at a future date. But
I think some of that may come down to their leadership at that time. I'm trying to remember if there was anybody between Gorbachev and Yeltsin, or if Gorbachev, how long he stayed over after the fall of the wall. Because you could argue Reagan and Gorbachev, that was still during or in the closing days of the Cold War, but had a pretty good relationship. I think they worked together to actually make that happen.
Yeah,
actually reuniting Germany.
Yeah, I don't know. It was interesting. Like it.
It's still it's crazy for me to think back about how much the globe has changed. Just when we were in elementary school, there was Czechoslovakia, there was East and West Germany. I remember being in elementary school, and the teacher's assistant was, I think she was West German. Like towards the end of the year, she brought in some little German stuff, like she brought us German tea and some little German candies or something to kind of tell us a little bit about where she came from.
That is neat. But yeah, so I don't know. There's a lot of parts pieces of this broad story that I think are good conversation pieces. I think it's important. I think
we've always had a really complicated relationship.
Not just with Russia, though. I'm just saying in general, but it's to me, it's the pick and choosing stuff. What stands out to me, and this is my conspiratorial tinfoil hat shit that I do, is the way this headline reads is that it's only the right and it's only the Russians. But it's we pick and choose. Both New York Times picks and chooses what they underscore and highlight and make big stories out of, as well as I don't see any open investigations on. What's the Israeli Secret Service or whatever? They have AIPAC, which is their actual political action committee, and that's a registered PAC. But I would be.
Oh, so I thought you meant the actual Israeli Special Forces.
I do, not Special Forces, but their version of CIA.
I'm blanking on it.
Yeah, but anyway, I would be hard pressed to not believe that they have a department within that body who is focused on how they can influence. We'll put the nice word on it. Try to influence our democratic system over here to protect their ends. Because we do it. I mean, it's not like we don't do it too. We
do a lot of coordination,
we exert our soft
especially
powers
with the intelligence. I think we're in like an intelligence coalition with like.
That's not what I'm talking about here, but I know what you're saying. I agree. Yes, we are. There is an intelligence areas agreement within our partnership with them, or allyship, or whatever it's called. Yes, but like our CIA goes out and influences elections around the world. We involve ourselves in other people's politics 100%. I mean, that is on some level the origin story of the current Ukraine crisis. It was our involvement in Ukrainian politics, and Russia's involvement in Ukrainian politics, for that matter. Like, I don't think I would venture a weak guess that had both Russia and the United States stayed out of Ukraine post the fall of the Soviet Union, that we wouldn't have the situation we're in now at all. Stayed out of their politics. Let them actually operate as their own independent nation and didn't try to influence what they were doing and how they were doing it and who was in charge and that kind of stuff. Because we both did it 100%.
Interesting thought.
We had candidates that we liked and didn't like, and we did what we could to try to influence how they were, who was elected where. And we do that all over the world. But again, I'm not trying to excuse a bad action by highlighting somebody else's bad action. I would like everybody to stop messing with other people's shit.
Did you see the nice clip of Tim Pool saying that we should apologize to Russia?
I know. I heard about it. I haven't seen the actual clip.
Yeah, it's real cool. Real pro-American.
I mean, what was his?
But I don't know if that was on his. That's what I was about to say. I don't know if it was on his channel or if that was something he was paid to say.
Well, what was his reason for why we should apologize?
It was. I just saw just like clips of it.
Yeah.
He basically said that Ukraine is our number one enemy in the world, and that we should apologize to Russia.
That's an interesting take. I mean, okay, so to use the survey questions. To use the style of the survey questions that I got on this earlier this week, if it were true that that U.S. involvement in Ukrainian politics. Now, how do I word this? I have to think about this question a little bit.
No, it's not.
Yeah. Anyway, I was going to try to work that question. So, well, that matter. Yeah. So, yeah, there's that. That was a big, exciting, interesting story. The who's who of names of people that now own a bunch of land in and around the old city is a fun one. See any of that story locally here this week?
No.
That's like Burleson, Boyd. I'm trying to think who else. There's a couple other ones.
Honestly, I'm surprised they didn't buy it up sooner.
That's what I thought too. I thought they all owned it. The most interesting one.
You mean that shit wasn't already bought up?
Right. The most interesting one from the clerk's office on this that I found, or that I heard about, that Scott actually found, and was reporting on in Compass, was Covenant Health, who is it is now Covenant Park or whatever it is has the official naming rights. There is a company it's some sort of data management company that had basically a server farm that's just like a box building right there off the edge of where the stadium's going. Right. Who they bought it. They actually got a TIF or pilot program to help them. They demolished whatever building was there and built this big concrete box basically to house their server farm and their data security or whatever in that. And it was like a 10 or 15 year pilot. And it just expired like 2 weeks ago. The pilot did. And as soon as it expired, a quick claim deed goes through to, and I can't remember the name of the company, but Covenant has a property, or their property management company that's separate from Covenant Health Systems, but it's the same company. So a quick claim deed goes through and it goes to them immediately. But apparently what had happened historically, and I'm not sure how I feel about this, I'm still trying to piece it all together logically. So apparently what happened somewhere between when this server farm got built and today, Covenant Health Systems had bought the data management company because that was like they were using apparently historically Covenant Health had been using this data management company to do all their records data that they have to do, and which is a ton in healthcare, right? And so they were paying this company to do it, and they just decided to buy that company and bring it in and just do their own basically do their own data management. And so they'd done that somewhere in the last couple of years or whatever, and so essentially they already owned it because they own the company that owned the land, and they just shifted ownership within their own. They shifted it into their property management group instead of. And I'm not sure why they timed it out to be after the pilot expired, but that's essentially what happened. But it was a neat little this is a weird little thing. Oh, okay, it makes sense now. Or does it? I don't know if it makes sense. Does it make sense at all?
Kind of. You lost me a little bit.
Okay. And so Covenant Health had been paying this company to do their data management services.
Right.
Covenant Health decides to buy that company. So when they buy that company, they're buying all their assets, which includes the building and the piece of land right there on the edge of the old city. Okay. After the pilot expires, they transfer ownership from the company they own to a different company they own, because the different company they own is their land management company. Now, why they waited, I don't know, but essentially they were just kind of restructuring where it sat in their umbrella of things. Right. It has been a property; they have owned it technically for a while. They just changed where it sits on in their ledger.
Okay.
But it's just kind of interesting because that comes out a week after the announcement that they bought the rights to name the park. That was just kind of neat about it. Like, it just seemed like an odd timing combination of things.
Aren't they a publicly traded company?
Covenant Health Systems?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, they're a not-for-profit, so I don't know what owning a share in a not-for-profit company would be worthless. Why would you buy shares in a non-profit?
Are they a non-profit?
I believe so. I believe we established that last week when we were talking about them.
I thought we were talking about UT.
Yeah, but I think about
we did talk about Covenant.
Yeah. Oh snap! You want to do Tuesdays the debate? You want to do a live debate show?
Yeah, why not?
All right, we'll see. Let me see what's going on in the house before I make schedules for my entire household that includes taking me out. But I don't really want to. I don't know. We could do a post show, maybe that'd be fun. But I don't know if it's worth doing a active. We'll see. I'm curious.
I don't know about doing like a live show, watching it, and trying to talk about it at the same time.
Yeah,
it's going to get kind of boring if we're trying to focus and pay attention.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what
this week TiVo it and pause it.
I was going to say, though, it's like, so it's I guess Fox is doing a simulcast of it, but like there's some ownership, right? Like there's copyright, so we can't just play it on our channel and say it's ours. Now we could play it in the background, or we can pull clips, because I know like political stuff falls under like the general use thing in clips. But I could.
Well, that and there's like the whole like commentary thing that like a lot of YouTubers are able to kind of get around and like playing stuff as long as they're kind of commenting on it.
Right, and over it.
It's not trying to say, it's like, oh, well, I'm just, doing a review of it.
Yeah. So,
which most are, but some try to get around that.
But yeah, I don't know what's going to come out of it. Like, I don't feel like, I'm not sure I feel like there's any hope for anything significant coming out of it.
Yeah, I mean, unless either one of them makes some like big blunder, I agree with you. I don't think that much is going to come out of it. I don't really think it's going to sway that many voters one way or the other, unless somebody knocks one out of the park or flubs it.
Yeah, I mean, I think even if somebody knocks it out of the park or flubs it, I don't think Trump's losing anything. I think Trump could flub it or be perfect in it, and I don't think his polling numbers will change. I think Kamala's the only one that has any chance of any real change. Like if she really gets in there and she puts it to him and just schools them over and over and over again, I think that'll get a lot of people excited for her.
I did see something interesting. They're doing like the muted mics, which apparently they were going back and forth on or whatever.
Right, because the Harris team wants him unmuted because they know he can't shut up and he'll get himself in trouble.
Right. They're like, no, we pledged with the Biden thing that we were going to do it, even though that was the same debate they were going to back out of anyway and try to cancel. But whatever. Sorry. But no, there was ABC said that they're going to mute it, but they'll still have like recording of it. I don't know if they're going to do like a follow up or whatever.
I think that's I mean,
thing, and
I
do
get
like
it.
A second screening of having both of them talking.
I get it, but I think that's dirty.
Right.
I mean, I just think that's. I mean, I think that's.
I don't know it being dirty, and I think if there's, I don't think they'll actually do anything with it. But I think if there's controversy about something that was supposedly said or wasn't said, they at least have hard copies of like, hey, no, this was the mic. You knew you had a mic on you at all times anyway. Just because you were muted doesn't mean we weren't listening.
Yeah,
I think it was.
But I mean, that'd be like okay.
I think it was past couple days that I think a Harris spokesperson kind of pointed out when there was kind of like worry or whatever that like, oh, they really wanted him to be on the mic. They think he might be more tame. If he's muted. And they were like, well, Kamala still has the option. Like if he says stuff while she's talking, and they're like, what you guys can't hear right now is Donald Trump is telling me blah 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 blah.
Right.
If there is this kind of like crosstalk or attempted crosstalk when the other one's muted. I guess he was basically saying, he's like, there's still the option that she can,
right.
She'll have to stop what she's saying, but if that was their goal at some point was to try to get under his skin.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I guess I suppose it'd be like going to a concert and they have the click track playing through the PA too. Like, yeah, it's there. Like, it's there and it's happening, but that's not part of the show. That's not part of the production. Now, if it's known part of the production, that's a different story. Like if it's old school, it's like,
like I said, I mean, this is all like the parameters that they put out that campaigns have agreed to.
But my point is,
they're being fully transparent with it.
But if they're going to tape it, but not use it in real time, but come back and use it in post, that's not part of the production. That's now a new production. It's a new separate production.
I don't think they said they were going to do anything like that. I was just saying.
Yeah, but they're if they're going to actively do it, there's going to be some demand for, okay, well, what was it? Instead of being like, okay, we didn't hear what he said because that's not how this thing worked. We don't get to hear what he said. I would prefer they just have open mic the whole time.
You get fucking lip readers trying to come out of the woodworks. Like, no, I think he said this. I think she said that.
I hope they do like they did in the first one.
I would much rather there actually be audio recording of it.
Right, but I'd rather it be just like real time live and not bother with muting it for the production's sake. But
I agree.
I would like them. I hope they do it like they did the last one, where they have them side by side.
Both parties agreed that they wanted to be muted, and then
yeah.
It is what it is.
But then if that's the agreement, then the muted mic shouldn't get taped. That's all I'm saying. But I hope they do it the same way they did before, where they have them side by side, though, because that was nice. I actually appreciated being able to just sit there and watch both of them. And so, like, Trump was talking and Biden, you had the camera on Biden. You got to see Biden's reaction to what Trump was saying visibly, which was enough. Like, which on certain topics is enough to say, okay, there's something here. Like Biden took exception to whatever he just said, or vice versa. Like Biden was talking about something, and you see Trump there looking confused because he can't understand what Biden's trying to say or whatever. Like there's plenty of body language that can be played without having to have weird audio. But I don't know. I don't know if it matters. I'm about to get in another argument with a friend on the futility of third-party voting, because a vote in I guess. The way that they termed it was a third-party vote is a vote for the person you like less. That was their statement.
Okay.
And I don't like that.
My vote, my choice.
Yeah. But it's also like in what world, and I think this goes down to, Jesse had posted an interesting question on his personal Facebook page. And some of this stuff, and again, this is some of the right-wing media stuff. Candace Owens, particularly, being super anti-Semitic as of late, which is not cool. Don't. I'm not trying to say it's cool at all, but it's like this. He asked this question of basically, it's like, how do you continue to support Republican candidates when these are the top spokespeople for your agenda? And it's like, I get that question. That's a great question, but he also said in his question, you can't use whataboutism, and it's like, but that's all that exists. We're in a zero-sum game. It's, well, what am I supposed to do about all the other things that the other person does that I hate? Like, how do I make this decision? We talked about it last week at length about how it's like, what was it? These pro-life PACs are really pissed off at Trump for implying that he might vote for the changing of the Florida abortion law. in the actual election when he goes to vote as a citizen?
Nah, it seemed like he was just trying to appease both sides. Which,
right. I'm just saying
what I read actually ended up pissing off a lot more people.
Right.
Than he really
but the pro-life people that
are the idea, they're like, no. Like, we thought you were with us. Like, no, I don't think so.
Right. But the pro-life team.
Right.
And the pro-life PACs that are out there that are upset with him, and the evangelical people that are upset with him for not being, because Trump has been nothing but consistent on this issue of he put it to the states and he's leaving it there. That has been his stance from the beginning. That was his argument for why he did the justices. He's never said that he wanted to do a federal ban. He's been clear on that. Well, that's not true. He hasn't been clear on that. He's been wishy-washy on that in his attempts to try to appease both parties or both sets of people, as you just said. But that's always been his shtick on this thing. Is he's like, we're leaving it to the states.
Okay.
Is that inaccurate? Do you disagree with that?
I just thought it was funny. He started out with he's been consistent, and then it went been wishy-washy.
I've been wishy-washy. Well, his actions have been consistent in that this was as far as he was willing to go, was to get the justices in place to repeal Roe v. Wade, which made it a state's issue, which is the thing. And it seems like in all other actions and all other attempts, he has certainly never, at least if I've heard, he has never said that he intends to put a federal ban in place if he's elected. Because at least the last couple of times,
I don't know what he thought was going to happen by kicking it down to the states, because there were a lot of, I don't know the totality of, but there were a lot of states like ours that had trigger bans in place. I mean, he kind of had to know going into it. That,
absolutely, he knew that some states would ban it and some states wouldn't, and I think that was to credit an idiot, I guess. I think he knew that, and I think that was the point. I think he was like, you know what, we can do.
But that's not directly really kicking it down to the states, because I think our trigger ban was, or a lot of states' trigger bans were like late 1800s.
Okay, what do you mean it's not kicking it down to the states? That was a state law put in place.
I agree. Yes, it was a state law that was on the books.
It was a state law that was on the books that was
superseded by federal law.
Right, that was prohibited not by federal law, by federal precedent through the Supreme Court.
Right.
It was a state law. Many states had laws on the books that were not enforceable due to the precedent set by Roe v. Wade. And so, yeah, he absolutely knew. And some of them were more recent. I mean, Tennessee's trigger ban was what? Early aughts, right? Late 90s?
I thought it was older. I can't remember exactly. I thought one of ours. Our
Briggs
state might have been the ones from like 1800s, but
Briggs voted for it, so it's been in the last decade or so. He hasn't been the senator.
That could have been a separate state abortion bill. Because, different levels of abortion have been debated throughout the years.
Yeah, but anyway, it doesn't matter. The one that we're currently under. Anyway, that's not the point. But I think the point is that the pro-life PACs that are mad at Trump for not explicitly stating and advocating for the full federal ban and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
It's like, okay, well, so let's say in some weird world we have a super Jewish pro-life group, right? So, like, you have the Republican Party who's getting painted, and not inaccurately in some places, as quite anti-Semitic currently. And if you're one of those people, you're like, okay, well, I'm super pro-life, but I'm also, I'm also Jewish, and I don't like to see anti-Semitism at play, or, a whole litany of not conflicting, but like semi-complicated individuals that exist. And it's like, well, I only have two choices. I have the more Jewish-friendly pro-abortion person, or I have the less Jewish-friendly anti-abortion person. How do I rank these issues on which person I'm voting for? Because I only can vote for one of these two people. That was the crux of the question Jesse put up, though that's the crux of my response to Jesse's question, I suppose. It's like, it's a good question, except if I'm not allowed to use whataboutism, then I can't talk about it, because, why would I vote for somebody who is openly anti-Semitic? Well, because all of the things that the other guy's into, I don't like. But I can't say that because that's whataboutism.
And different people draw their lines, I guess, in different areas.
Right, and I think that's the point. But I think, but to be able to draw those lines and distinctions in those different things is it's always going to be a comparison to the other. And if you're not allowed to use whataboutism in conversation about it, for the particular question Jesse put up, if you're not allowed to use whataboutism in the conversation about it, I can't justify my answer because I can't talk about why I'm not going to do the other. Does that make sense? Because again, it's the critical mess that is this little AB world that we are forced to live in,
Right.
And I think it's quite unfortunate because I think it pushes, it forces us to have to swallow things that we fucking hate to get things that we fucking like.
Yeah, less people want to find middle ground. Sure,
because compromise, then there's no point in compromising. Which is my argument for why the third party vote matters. Is if we had stronger, more evident third parties, no, they're not going to go in there and they're not going to change the way the House works, and we're not going to get legislation passed that we want to get, quote unquote, as a libertarian or whatever. Not at least directly, but I would think that if we had people who were running for seats that weren't affiliated, that the parties would have to start reacting to those losses numbers. And right now they don't have to react to those losses numbers. That's the Jill Stein argument for the Green Party. Jill Stein's a crazy lady, whatever, but it's like one of the reasons, and she's said this on record, and it's an interesting thing to hear. It's like, look, I first ran as a Green Party candidate, and I first got active in the Green Party as a presidential possibility because, in her opinion, the progressive part of the left has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller in representation in the federal government. So the progressive climate change, truly more socialist things, and I don't mean that derogatory at all, but more social programs, more social services, more things where, a higher tax rate, but, having more community goods that we're using our tax dollars for, that kind of stuff. That's a Green Party thing. And their goal as the Green Party is never really to win. They don't think Jill Stein's going to win the presidency. Their goal in an election cycle is to get enough votes where the Democrats have to go, okay, we need to start incorporating some of those values so that we can get enough votes to win.
Right.
But it doesn't seem like the two parties want to deal with that anymore. They're just like, nope, we're doing it our way. And so it's like, I guess like you said a second ago, compromise, right? Like if we had a good world, if we had a good functioning, proper political system, the Democrats and the Republicans would compromise to get us some good things that come in the middle. What's the number one number one indication of having a good compromise? Neither party leaves happy, right? You've heard that phrase?
It's one of the adages.
Right.
Some would say the opposite, that both sides leave happy. But.
Right. I always like that one because it's like, well, neither party leaves upset, but neither party leaves 100% happy because you had to give something to get something, and so you leave content because what you gave up for what you got was worth it to you. And then the other party, what they gave up for what they got is worth it to them, and everybody wins. So if we had a real active compromising, two-party system in play, okay, that's a thing. But since they don't seem to, they refuse to compromise with each other.
Because a lot of the compromise, essentially, politically, will come down to giving away a little bit of power or giving a little bit of power.
Yeah,
essentially is kind of how they view compromise, going across the aisle, supporting an opposing party's bill or amendment.
Right, but that's all. Yeah, but at least recently, the only ones that do that is when it's in bulk, when it's a truly bipartisan thing, right. And it's not. It doesn't have a political.
That's what I mean. I think to them, they see compromise as kind of giving up power if they end up giving in.
Right. I get what you're saying. And it's because like we live in a world where you compromise on an issue and you give an inch, and your next election cycle you're going to get primaried, and your primary opponent's going to hammer home that you voted with the other team on this one issue.
Right.
And so, I compromise because that's what I'm supposed to fucking do.
Yeah, otherwise this bill wouldn't have passed.
Right. And they can hold that over your head, so you're stuck with it. And so, but to me, it's like, so you take that down to another level into like the inner party dynamics. If you're the Democrats and you are willing to compromise with the sub factions that are on the left with you, like the Green Party, for example, that would get you, like you refuse to do that compromise on top after you refuse to, like you refuse to compromise with the right and you refuse to compromise within the own left subset of stuffs. You get this very rigid, hard system where we just sit there and do these cycles where every couple of cycles of things you have a party A president, House, Senate. And then a bunch of shit gets done that team wants done. And then in the immediate next election cycle, whatever the midterm is or something like that, one of the three will get dropped. And then it'll be a 2-1, or the weird we've had is a 1-1 and even split Senate.
There was one article I sent you maybe a couple of weeks ago that kind of talked about the two parties, and they kind of pointed out that, the Democratic Party of the past, couple decades, in the 90s, they were called like the party of compromise, something along those lines. And to where even now, you do have people that vote Democratic, from, I think they gave the example of, Liz Cheney to AOC.
Yeah, but I don't think that's fair. Like Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney have both endorsed Harris.
Yeah, Liz Cheney announced it like a week or so ago. Then, yesterday,
but
Cheney came out.
I don't think that's not a Republican Democrat thing. That's a I fucking hate Trump thing. I think personally, that's more about hating on Trump, which is about. I mean, I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying.
No, I'm talking about just like the party in general.
But I'm just saying,
you look at Congress, you have the Freedom Caucus that kind of used their small power to hold up a lot of legislation. I think the Squad did it, a couple times, but maybe I'm biased, but I don't think they did it quite as much as some of the Freedom Caucus did.
But I think if you had an aura of compromise, the Squad would have and I think that's what's happening on the right. The right's reacting to the minority caucus power that the Freedom Caucus had, and the party at large is moving that direction. And then you have if the progressive,
I just mean it seems like there's more divisions among the Republican Party versus the Democratic Party, at least in the past,
right? Because you had the old Tea Party part of things stuff that really kind of probably kicked all of this off. To be fair,
but I mean, even just in the past 4 years, I think there's been a little bit more splintering of the GOP.
I think so. I mean, I agree, because I think we talked about it. I've said it a million times. I think we've talked about it a couple times at least, that Trump is not a Republican. There is Trumplicans and Republicans, and a lot of Republicans are holding their nose and dealing with the Trump thing. But all this internal fighting is about what people who consider themselves actual Republicans and people who are playing the Trump game.
Right.
I mean, I think it's significantly more pronounced given how un-Republican Trump actually is.
Right. I can't remember what the reference was. They were basically kind of talking about Trump not really trying to court. I'm assuming it would have been like Haley voters, which I think I don't know if he made much attempt after the primaries were over to really reach out to them and kind of coalesce them.
I mean, I think Trump's thought process is, he said it in an interview this week, he's like, you don't have to like me. You just have to vote for me because you can't vote for that. Yeah. That was a 2016 tactic that he did, and I think it landed.
I can't remember what the reference was. They kind of equated it to it'd be like Kamala saying she doesn't give a shit about the Bernie voters. They tell them they were out of their fucking mind if they didn't care about the Bernie voters.
I don't know. I mean, but I agree in the actual being a decent politician, you wouldn't want to do that. But I think if you're a Bernie voter, you're voting for Harris right now, even if they're not courting you at all. If again, on the assumption that you're going to vote and you're going to vote for A or B, you're going to vote for Harris if you're a Bernie supporter. If you're that subset of the left, you're not going to vote for Trump.
Right.
And so if you have to pick one, like my youngest in the car.
I mean, it seems like there's been times where Trump is almost kind of pushed off portions of his party.
Right. But I
think that's what it was trying to equate it to. They're like it'd be like a Democratic nominee basically saying like, I don't give a fuck about the Bernie.
Right. I mean, I get what you're saying. I do. I'm just saying. I think Trump, and I think this is the one thing that I really love about Trump. And I know it's a terrible phrase to say out loud, but I think
my brain's still struggling sometimes.
He says the quiet part out loud. Like I think I think the idea of you're going to vote for me because you can't vote for them is probably a fairly standard thought process inside. I mean, pre-Trump history of parties and top candidates and stuff like that. It's we don't need to we don't need to really go after and make promises to that subset because they're going to vote for us anyway. You don't say that out loud.
Maybe
you don't say it out loud, but you think it and you act accordingly.
I don't think that guarantees them voting for you just by saying that. I think that could also just dissuade them to not go vote at all. I think you run the risk of kind of running that plan like that.
Maybe, but then it's the question of does trying to court that subset put you at risk at upsetting a larger subset you have on your side?
Because someone can almost kind of see that as a politician saying that to them, them kind of be like, oh well, sounds like they're saying I'm not really that great, but they're really bad too, so you should probably vote for me. It's not really much endorsement of the.
Again, that's what I'm saying.
Hey, you may not like me, but.
Right, but Trump says it out loud, which nobody else will say it out loud. Like maybe.
So what kind of vote and support are you asking for? I mean, I guess you're in. You got
because you don't have a choice. I think that's the game it plays. You don't have a choice. It's you're going to vote for me because you can't vote for them if you're going to bother to vote. And this election that does matter in the sense of it's going to be tight enough in some of these important states that a couple thousand people can make a difference in in a pretty significant way. Yeah. If 1,000 people don't show up for you because you just said whatever, I don't care, you're going to vote for me anyway, that could lose you that state, and that is a pretty serious issue, I would say, this time around. But you also have to balance that with, well, if I cater to these people, how many of these other people are going to be dissuaded to vote for me? Because I think that's Trump's problem with the abortion thing. It's like he doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to say or do anything on abortion outside. Like he's like, I did what I did. We're moving forward. And there's a whole subset of the right that wants him to actively say he wants to ban abortion nationally. And I think he knows that is super unpopular, and that he would lose more voters doing that than he's going to gain by promising it.
Yeah.
But he's also doing the math saying, well, you're going to vote for me anyway. Because if you vote...
the reporter's name, I think she was trying to nail Vance down on that same kind of questioning line. Like, if a federal ban, bill came across his desk, would he veto it?
It's a good question. I mean, that's a good question, but like the odds of that happening anyway, that's a real trap question too. Cause like,
I don't think it would pass House and Senate to make it all the way to.
Right. That's very much like one of those survey questions. If it were true that somehow our inept legislature passed a major bill on abortion.
Also a headline that Speaker of the House thinks that House, Senate, and White House is going GOP. So, I mean, it's possible in the event of that.
Yeah,
it could be legislation that crosses.
I still think there's enough. I think there's enough. There are enough Republicans in both House and Senate that their future would be in serious jeopardy if they let it go through. And I think if you're the speaker, if you're the speaker of the House,
some argue they already lost. after Roe got overturned. Were there midterms after that?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I think, because Speaker Johnson's going to be like, okay, we've got the numbers, we could do this, but if we do, we are guaranteed to lose this seat, that seat, this seat, that seat, this seat, and that'd be a large enough number in the next cycle that they'll figure out a way to just kind of leave it off and never actually get it on the floor. They'll blame it on the Democrats or something like that, but it'll really be his decision not to put it on the floor.
Have you heard about his story or agreement he has with his son and their cell phones? It's weird. They're I forget what they call it, but basically they're each other's partner basically, but for monitoring each other's porn activity or lack thereof, assumably. I thought thought that really odd.
I don't know.
This is something he's come out and said. You know, they have some app that they're able to like monitor each other's like internet activity. I just thought that was really weird.
I mean, if it's something that you recognize might be in a problem yourself, it's not a bad thing to give yourself an accountability measure.
Yes, I don't know if it was more so to watch over his son or just to make him seem more wholesome.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just thought it was weird.
It is kind of weird.
I love my dad, but I don't want to like monitor his internet activity. I got other shit to do.
Yeah. Grown ass man.
Yeah.
Go get your porn. Well, just get your porn elsewhere. That's figured. Actually, I don't know. There's no point. Where else do you get your porn these days? There's only one place for porn, and it's free on the internet. One day we'll be popular enough that I'll have some porn producers come to me for running ads. Not for me. I'm not going to be in a porn. I'm not a porn actor. I'm just saying they do spend a lot of money in marketing that industry for sure.
I think you're going to see more growth of digital, if anything, in that field.
There was a bit. It was what's his name? It was Tom Segura's podcast, and he had the old guy from the Redneck Comedy Tour.
Old guy, Ron White.
Yeah, it was Ron White was on there. And they were talking about VR porn. It was just funny because like Ron White's like, have you ever done that? Have you ever seen that VR porn? He's and Tom, I can't remember exactly how Tom said it. He's basically like, yeah, I accidentally turned it on one time, and it was
and put the glasses on,
right, and had but like in reference that it was like a subscription VR porn service that he logged into accidentally. And
I got to get my money's worth.
It's like, well, I'm here.
Paid for a month.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. So. I don't know, man. You're not feeling good. You got any weird stuff for us?
I'm trying to look for anything weird. Did we talk about? I can't remember if it was on or off air. The minor interrogation.
Yeah, we talked about that last week.
We talked about it on the show.
Yeah,
and I saw the shooting that happened yesterday. There was the sheriff that was talking about it because I guess either Baltimore or Maryland. I think they were saying the Maryland has a state law to where they can't interrogate minors. I guess they had him in custody, and I don't know if they wanted to get more information, but it seemed like the sheriff was basically like, this is messed up. You're handcuffing law enforcement by, not allowing us to interrogate. Basically, I don't know.
Good.
I think we're both in agreement on it.
Yeah, good. Yeah, you should be. Like I don't know.
I don't know what Tennessee's law is, but it sounds Maryland has a law that they don't allow it.
I'm in the camp of it should be as difficult. It should as much of all of the difficulty should squarely lie on the state on all of these things. It should be very difficult for them to do things because
I don't see how they should be treated differently than an adult, and to where you would still have those your Miranda rights,
right?
But I think, the kind of like added point of it being a minor is, they don't quite have that intellectual capability.
Well, here's a question to just kind of throw on the pile. It's like, all right, so, there are certain cases of comes where a minor has done something and the parents are held liable for it.
Right.
Well, then essentially, and at least in whatever the particulars are that are in play in those ones, is essentially if you and the parent and the minor in that situation are one single suspect, functionally.
No, that's not how they were charged.
Do what?
That's not how they were charged.
Yeah, but it's okay. Well, let me back. Okay, but it'd still be like a like a spouse. Like I have the right to refuse to answer questions about my spouse. Right. And I would think a child should fall under that pretty clearly. Like I have the right to not tell the police something. Like they cannot subpoena me and force me to answer a question on a potential crime my wife has committed. I don't have to answer those questions. I can just say I can plead the fifth, even though I'm not the perpetrator of the thing. Basically, in those situations.
Well, now that I think about that, I know you can't be forced to testify, but in police investigation, they probably couldn't force you to either. But
They couldn't put like.
I don't think it's necessarily on the grounds of.
Well, they can't. Okay, they could try to they could interrogate you and you can refuse to answer, but they can't hold you. You can't be charged with impeding an investigation for not answering
the
the question.
The whole testifying against your spouse that's only in court,
right?
Or in court testimony, basically.
But I think outside of it, they like because you could be like if it was known if it was provable that I knew a fact in a crime and I refused to give them that fact, that I could be charged with withholding evidence or impeding an investigation.
Possibly, yeah.
But if that fact is on my spouse, I can't be charged with that. I'm pretty sure. I'm not legally obliged to disclose criminal activity of my spouse. We're allowed to that is spousal privilege, just like lawyer privilege, just like, and I would think kids should at minimum fall under that category.
Yeah.
And it means to protect mainly the child. It's yeah. I think it's fucked up that cops try to do it, period. Except, I don't know, because you get into this other side of things.
I get it in the idea that when they're kind of in the heat of an investigation. I can see it a little bit from that angle. And they're basically, trying to find answers.
I don't remember the name of the study, but there's studies out there that show human being in general's willingness to adhere to authority. That's not the right phrase. Acquiesce to authority, basically, right? There's it's the old Harvard, like there's that Harvard. I think it was a Harvard torture experiment. You remember hearing about that one?
Yeah. Prison experiment.
Do what? Prison
experiment.
Yeah. There's a couple different ones. The one I was referencing is the one where they're electrocuting people.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
You know what I'm talking about, though?
Yeah, I think it's Milgram, Stanley Milgram.
Yeah, and so it's they a guy comes in a lab coat and says he's the doctor running this whatever, and that the person they're doing the experiment on is not the person that they're being told it is, and so they're doing what the person in authority in the situation tells them to do, and there's people will break their own morals when an authority figure like that tells them to, and it's more complicated than that. That's a simplified version of the idea.
Let's say, there are different versions of it.
But you think about it from a kid, but you put that in. Then
hold on a second.
Go ahead.
Hold on a second. There were different studies that were done on that, and some of those studies also proved the opposite of what you're trying to say. I've literally heard recordings of people refusing. I think it was in a situation where, the person that you were shocking or whatever was in a different room. But it was at the point in the experiment where the other person stopped responding,
right? And
they were could tell them to keep pushing it,
right?
I mean, there's recordings of it you can listen to of the people be like no, what's going on? What's going on there? I can't hear him anymore. I'm not going to keep pressing this button.
Yeah. No, I agree. I acknowledge that. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to get that out there. That it doesn't that experiment has been, I think, misused by a lot of people to try to say. I think a lot of people try to use that to
justify poor actions on themselves.
Justify Nazi war criminals. But they were they were just following orders. They were and this study proves this.
I mean,
no,
the fact that you built the army the size that Hitler did at some level kind of proves the experiment in of its own sake. Do we really believe that the totality of the German state was actually as anti-Semitic as Hitler was, and would have been on board with what Hitler was doing had they had the ability to say no? I think it's more complicated than that, because there was okay, well, if you're not going to kill these people when I tell you to, then I'll just add you to them and I'll have somebody else do it, but whatever. Anyway, my point in all that was, but turn that down to from a kid's perspective, there is an internal thing that humans have, and more so in children, especially in girls, of a want to, a desire to please the authority figure in the situation. And so you put that into this, police interrogating a child kind of thing. It's that puts this kid in a really tough spot, because they don't know what they don't have to do and do have to do and stuff like that. I don't know. I think the moral of the story is we agree that it's fucked up the cops try to do it, regardless of their explanation for why they think they should be able to. All right, find us something weird. Let's wrap this up so you can get some rest and you can get healthy and we can do this again next week.
That's good. So, okay.
Or maybe Tuesday night. I don't know.
Yeah. Got Cowabunga. New England town celebrates being the birthplace of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I thought it was New York.
No, apparently Dover, New Hampshire. As the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles grew to become a pop culture sensation, the place where they were conceived rarely got mentioned.
Ignore that stupid noise.
What?
Can you hear that? You can't hear that. Never mind. Why can I hear it? I hit the wrong button.
Oh, I waited for a second if you were going to do the music, and I was like, okay, never mind. I'm just going to go.
I was going to. Stop. Shit. Hold on. What did I just do? What is going on here? All right. Anyway. Yeah. There's stupid noise in the background, and it's being real weird.
It wasn't the New York City sewers, where the turtles mutated from regular reptiles into a crime-fighting quartet who battled foes with nunchucks, snark, and pizza. Rather, it was a small city near the New Hampshire coast.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Remember that? Remember you making fun of me for labeling my buttons last week? I do.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a tease.
Still didn't label my buttons, and then now I'm distracted. Oh, so with the true origin story of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I'm good with it.
So it's the birthplace, says the man who, along with another person, created the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 41 years ago when the two shared a house in Dover. The first issue went on sale a year later. That's when the Turtles were created. It's a very historic and it is very historic and very important to us. I guess they have a Turtles exhibit that opened in the Woodman Museum, New Hampshire.
Well, next time I'm up in New Hampshire, I'll make sure to go visit the Ninja Turtle Museum. That's fun. I like it. I'm good with it. I can't get mad at that. So, anyway, all right, man. I hope you get feeling better.
Me too.
If you need me to swing by, just give me a shout. I can run up there and do some stuff.
Okay.
Talk to you through the window. I'm not going inside your house. I don't want your plague.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, that's the show. We did a show with 6 a.m. Almost Agreement, everybody. Almost Agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to the website, almostagreement.com. While you're there, check out all the cool stuff we've got going on. Holler Boo is October 26th. If you want to race your Derby car, sign up today. We need to get the registration in so we can see how many drivers we have, so we can set the brackets, and you can race and wreck and not die. Just minor injuries is all I'm asking for. Or if you have some cool wares that you like to sell or a food truck or something like that, go to the vendor page and register to be a vendor there. We want as many cool random people doing all sorts of cool random stuff, being able to sell your wares and show them off to the great people of Knoxville. AlmostAnAgreement.com. Go to your favorite podcast provider, give us a follow and a share, and text it to your friends. We'll be back next week, fingers crossed, with a standard show, a little more alcohol, a little more talk, and a little less logic. So that's what I do, at least. And Sam will be back too. So we'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks for listening, everybody. Oh, did it again.